Hey guys, welcome back from Classic Work. We're in the office of Classic Work today, and I was going to show y'all how to sheath a roof. I got a request for this a couple of weeks back, and I'm going to walk you through everything you need to know how to do a basic gable style roof. Now, as you can see, this is a model that I've made here, and I'm going to show you a few basic things that you need to know before we get started, and kind of the logistics about it and everything like that. Because sheeting a roof is a little bit hard to understand unless you look at the big picture of it. Since I'm a very visual learner, I thought this would be the best way that I could show to describe it. So, first thing that you do after you build your framework, we've got our rafters here, we've got our joists that run in all the way to the other wall on the other side. As you can see, that this is just only half of the scale. So, first thing that you're going to want to do after you've built everything is to put your fascia on. So I'm going to take some liquid nails here and nail up our piece of fascia. Okay, now one thing that you want to do is on everything, you're going to lap everything by half of your rafters. So leave half, when you measure to the center of your rafter and make your cut. So that way that you can splice your next one in. So we'll take our other piece here. And we'll hang it just the same way. Okay. Yeah. My liquid nails is failing me. There we go. Alright, now we can get started on the rest of it. Okay, now we can get started laying our sheathing. I've got an index card here. This here is going to represent our 4x8 sheeting. And usually the type of sheeting you'll put on a house is either going to be 4x8 plywood, half-inch plywood, or wafer board. Just depends on where you are. And some places still use 1x8 and 1x12, but that's getting very, very uncommon. But anyways, enough of that. Whenever you're laying sheathing, you never want to lay it in a straight line, meaning you don't want to start here and just start laying your plywood straight up like this. Because what you've done is just made a straight line, and this rafter right here is going to be your weak point, because all the stresses from all these is connecting to this one rafter. So what you want to do is stagger it, and the way you do that is you take one of these 4x8 sheets and you cut it in half, and you have what's known as a half sheet, and that's what you start with. And you start down here at the bottom on the corner. So what we're going to do is take our liquid nails again. Alright, take our 4x4 sheet this time, and you'll lay it right up on the edge. And you always want to break right in the middle of a rafter. That way you can tie in with the next sheet. So, put some more liquid nails down. Okay, this time you'll take a whole sheet. Whole sheet will just butt right up next to the other one. And you can continue doing this. Doesn't matter how long your run is, you can just keep going off that one side. Now, when you start on your next run, which would be up here, instead of starting with a half sheet, you'll start with a full sheet. Super easy. Now granted, I left out an important step here. One thing you want to do is, when you start laying your sheathing, you want to take a tape measure and draw a 4-foot mark from the bottom edge of your tail of your rafter, and do the same on the other end of your house, and pop a line so everything's nice and straight. And then you'll start building off of that. So if something gets crooked, it'll still be straight. So we'll just continue going here. Okay, whenever you get done with your second run, you'll do the same things you did in your first run. Is you'll start with a half sheet up here again. That way we don't have any straight lines. Take our half sheet, and the principle just continues as you go. And there you go. If you notice anything, it kind of looks like masonry, like stone or bricks that they interlock together. Alright, and that's the basics on pretty much laying sheathing. Now we're going to take a look at a few other things, and then we'll go to the real world and I'll show you what it really looks like. Okay, one other thing I was going to show is a hip rafter, what you do for laying sheathing on one of those, or decking. On a hip or a valley, it doesn't matter. You're going to just continue to lay like you would on your commons. The only difference is, since this is a 45 leg coming off the roof, you'll have jack rafters which will sit and they'll get increasingly shorter as it goes down the line. So I'm going to put this jack rafter right here. And as you can see, you can tie the sheeting into these rafters as they keep going. So you'll lay your next sheet right here. What you'll do is mark you a line down the middle of your hip here, and then snap a line, and then you'll cut this portion off. And you'll lay it. Sorry, my jack got a little crooked there. You'll lay it just like that. You'll do this all the way down, and you'll just continue from here to there, and you'll continue from here to there. So that's how that would work on a hip. So enough of the model crap, let's go look at the real world. So to the shop. Alright, as you can tell, we're back at the shop, and I've got a little model here all mocked up. And let me go ahead and just say that this building is not quite up to code. It does have 2-foot centers, but disregard this ridge up here. This is only 1.5 inches wide. This is just to keep my rafters straight. So just because you see me do it, it's like, oh, he did it that way, that's the way I should do it. Don't do that. Put a full width ridge on there. Okay, a couple other things that you need to account for is go ahead, like I said before, and hang on your fascia before you put your sheeting on. The other thing that you got to consider too is, if you notice, this fascia is a little bit lower than the tails of the rafters, and this is why. As you can see, it's about a 1/2 inch lower, and the reason for this is when you go to lay your decking, you want your decking to plane in with the fascia. And if you leave that fascia the same height as the rafter tail down here, it'll hit that and it'll have like a little bump in it, and you don't want that. You want all this to plane in nice and smooth like I showed right here. But as you can tell, that's what you want it to look like. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is the important step that I said that you want to carry a line 4 foot from the fascia. So take tape measure out and a pencil and come off the fascia and up towards the ridge and mark out 4 foot. As you can tell here, I don't have 4 foot, so I'm going to mark 16 inches. Just give it a mark. Then we'll go down to the other side. Okay, and then you'll grab a chop box and snap a line. Here's a little quick tip for snapping a line. If you're working by yourself and you need your line to stay put, they make little holders for your lines, but a lot of times when you go to reel them up, they'll snag something and break. So after you lose one of them, you can take an old nail and just tie it to the end of the string. That way you can drive it into exactly where it needs to go. That way you'll always have it, and it won't ever come off. So, shit. Snap your line. We're cooking with gas. Okay, remember what I said, that we start with a half sheet and then continue from there. So that's the same thing we're going to do here. One thing is, go ahead and check and be sure that it's actually a half sheet, because if you're working on an older house or something like that, one of the rafters may not have been, it may have been a Monday or it may have been a Friday when somebody didn't feel like doing right. And go ahead and just check it and be sure that what you're cutting is the right thing. So it may be a little longer than 4 foot, it may be like 50 inches, or it may be shorter than 4 foot. It just depends. So just be sure to check it before you do it. So we're going to go ahead and get ready and cut. All right. Now I don't normally show the cutting process because I figured most people knew how to cut something, but I got a request, so I'm going to try to kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. Somebody asked me they wanted to know how to get straighter cuts using a skill saw, and I'm going to show you a few tips that I know because I was a cut man for 3 years. Anyways, we're going to lay out our piece of sheathing here. We're going to mark it out 16. Go to the other end. Grab a chalk box. Snap a line. Now, the best advice I can give for cutting straight is to practice. Now they make jigs and all sorts of stuff to help your saw guides, but you can make them just as easy. I'll show you one of my favorite ones I made a few years ago. Is this one right here. Now this thing right here is dirt simple and how it's made. It's nothing but a piece of 1/4 inch plywood that's been laminated. So this right here is your fence. It's this long stretch, and your saw guides off of this edge and cuts this line. So I like it because, one, it's real light, it's handy, and also it can bend. So if you got a crooked piece of material, it can twist and bend and it'll still have a straight line. So that's handy. But I'm going to show you a few other tips on how to cut freehand. So let's take a look at it. Alright, I will say one thing: if you're ever on a job or something like that and you start using saw guides around the other guys, they're going to laugh at you. So, I mean, it's okay if you're doing it by yourself, but it just depends on where you are. But anyways, a lot of people watch the saw guides on the front of the saw. I have no idea why they do that, but they do. And these things right here are useless, in my opinion, because you could be going straight by this and be going crooked as a snake's back by the blade. So disregard all that. What I look at is the space in between the plate of the saw and the blade itself. That way you're looking directly at the line. So let me get a close-up shot of what that kind of looks like. As you can tell though, you can see that line very clearly. A lot better than looking at the plate. Plus, if you're leaned over, like if you're leaned over the saw way up here, you're not paying attention to what's going on in the back. So looking right here is a dead sure way of finding it. So I'm going to cut a little bit of it. But as you can tell, that's dead on the line. And that's a real easy way to do it. So I'm gonna get set up, run the whole thing. can see, you can get some really good results. Remember to practice. Alright, now we can start nailing everything on. So, depending on where you live, you can use a variety of different fasteners. You can use screws, you can use nails. Some of them require it to be glued down. You need to check your local listings to see what your building code is. So, anyways, from where I live, 8 penny nails is what we use to nail off most sheathing. Now, this type right here, this is plywood. This is 3/8 plywood, which is not up to code. You really need 1/2 inch plywood or wafer board, one of the two. So, but this is what I have, so that's what I'm using. Anyways, go ahead and get started. Remember, you nail your plywood to your line, not to your fascia. So your fascia may be a little crooked, but that line is not. So go ahead and get started. Check, be sure we're okay down here. Now, in a perfect world, you could butt this to the end of your fascia and call it good, but that's not always straight. So that's why you snap a line and do it that way. Now then, we've got it tacked down. You want to put your nails every 4 to 6 inches into your rafters. And that's up to code where I live. So once again, check your local listings. But anyways, once you got it tacked down, you can move on to the next one. And that's what we'll do. We'll do our full sheet that goes all the way across next. Or you can start your full sheet from right here and work to the right, depending on how long your building is. In real life, that would be, 20 feet longer this way. You can just keep rolling like we did in our little demonstration. So, we'll do this piece next. Alright, whenever you get done with your first run, you go for your second one. Depending on where you live, you may have to use these. These right here are known as deck clips. And how they work is your plywood, they'll fit into them like so. And you'll have one spaced in between your rafters. Now what this does is it keeps the plywood from buckling. Now that may not be an issue if you're up north somewhere where you have 16-inch centers, which is more than enough support. But if they're 2 foot like this here is a weak spot. So they want to, depending on the code, like I said before, they'll want you to put a deck clip between every rafter. So the way you do that, like I said, is you just bump it up like this. You just slide your plywood until they connect together, like so. Now this does 2 things. One, it gives additional support for in between your rafters. And 2, if you notice, there's a little bit of gap in here. This right here is to allow for the plywood to shrink and contract. And I know plywood is very stable. It doesn't move very much, but you have to understand that the temperature that it's dealing with on a roof can be well over 130 degrees. So it's going to move some. So, and cold weather too. If you live up in the northern part of the world, it gets down 40 below. It's going to retract a little bit. So, of course, stuff moves, everything moves. So, that's what those are for. But depending on where you live, it may be an option, it may not. So, check your local listings. And then after that, you can nail this one down just like we did the first. And since we snapped our line for our initial, this one should be straight. And there you go. Easy as that. And don't worry too much about having an edge that's not completely flushed up with your trim. Whenever you lay your shingles and everything will be nice and covered up, especially whenever you have your rain drip flashing on the side. All that'll be covered up. You won't have any problems. But that's it. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Hope you got something out of it. And if you're like me, you build a roof within a roof. Just got me a giant drafting table now. All right. Y'all guys take care. I'll see y'all next time.